Have you ever stopped and really asked yourself how much of your income you should actually invest each month? Not how much you can invest, not how much you'd like to invest, but what's the real number that can secure your future and actually change your life over time? Most people think they have an answer, but when you look at the data, it turns out that very few are doing it right. And that's why today, we're going to look at the real numbers, the actual data, the research, and the math, to find the exact percentage of income that you should be investing. Because the truth is, there is a number that separates those who end up free and those who end up stuck forever working for money. So stay until the end to understand the real percentage. Leave a like and let's start. According to a massive study by Vanguard that looked at more than 5 million retirement plan participants, most Americans are not investing enough of their income to reach their long-term goals. These were all people who had defined contribution plans, meaning they contributed alongside their employer into retirement accounts. And when Vanguard analysed their data, the results were eye-opening. By the time someone reached the age of 55 to 64, their average retirement balance was only $27,800. That's average, not even the median. The median was even lower, and that should make anyone pause for a moment, because even though this data doesn't include every other investment a person might have, it paints a very clear picture that most people are simply not putting enough money aside, not consistently, and not early enough. The report showed that 3 things matter the most when it comes to investment balances: your income, your age, and how long you've been with your employer. That makes sense. As you get older, your skills grow, your income increases, and ideally your ability to save and invest grows with it. But even then, most people never invest nearly as much as they should. Now, the same study revealed something else that's even more interesting. On average, people in the US are investing around 11% of their income. But here's the twist. That number includes employer matches. So for example, if you're investing 5.5% of your paycheck and your employer matches that by another 5.5%, your total investing rate becomes 11%. Which means that in reality, most individuals are contributing around half of that themselves. And what's even more fascinating is how automatic systems completely change the game. The data showed that people who were automatically enrolled in a retirement plan contributed about 0.5% more than those who had to sign up manually. In some income ranges, the gap was even larger, up to 2% more. Among those earning $150,000 or more, voluntary enrollment had a contribution rate of 12.4%. But those who were automatically enrolled contributed an average of 14.6%. The difference might sound small, but over decades, that's the difference between struggling in retirement and having full financial independence. 2 huge lessons come out of this. The first is behavioural. If you automate your investing, you'll almost always end up investing more money over time. When the system takes care of it, you don't have to rely on motivation or self-control. It just happens. Money gets invested before you even notice it's gone. And that simple automation changes everything, because personal finance isn't really about numbers. It's about behaviour. The second lesson from this data is that these contribution rates are perfectly aligned with what the Federal Reserve's economic data shows on personal savings. Just a little break, I opened a free Telegram community where I teach how to earn money with YouTube and build channels like the one you're watching. If you want to understand how to do it, there's the link below. Back to before. According to the Federal Reserve's own data, the average personal savings rate in the United States currently hovers between 3 and 5%. Think about that for a second. That means that the average household, earning the median US income of around $72,000 a year, is saving or investing only about $2,000 to $3,500 per year. And that's not even pure investing. That includes all savings like emergency funds or debt payments. So in practice, most people are investing even less. Now 3 to 5% might not sound terrible, especially compared to people who save nothing. But when you compare that to other countries, it's actually shockingly low. In Ireland, for example, the gross household savings rate is closer to 20%. And across much of Europe and Asia, household savings rates range between 15 and 20%, which means that the average American is saving 1/4 of what many people in other countries are putting aside. And there's another important point to understand here. Saving is not the same as investing. When you save, your money stays still. When you invest, your money starts working for you. But of course, before you can invest, you need to save something. And that's where we see the real difference between income groups. A study comparing savings rates across income levels found that the top 1% of earners save roughly 38% of their income. The top 10% save about 15%, and the bottom 90%, meaning almost everyone else, save close to zero, some even negative, meaning they're spending more than they make. Now, obviously, higher income households have more flexibility. Their basic costs, like rent, food, transportation, don't rise nearly as fast as their income does. But the point is clear: the higher your savings rate, the greater your potential to invest, and the faster your wealth compounds. So, based on all the available data, we can safely say that most Americans are investing somewhere between 5 and 11% of their income, including employer matches. The wealthiest groups go far beyond that, with savings and investment rates as high as 30 to 40%. But the real question is, what percentage should you invest? There are two main ways to figure it out. You can either follow a general rule of thumb, like the popular 50-15-5 rule from Fidelity, or you can calculate your own exact number based on your retirement goals. Let's start with the rule. Fidelity's 50-15-5 guideline says that you should aim to spend 50% of your take-home pay on essential needs, things like rent, transportation, and groceries. Then 15% should go directly into retirement savings. That's your long-term investing money. And another 5% should be set aside for short-term savings, like an emergency fund or future big purchases. The remaining 30% is for discretionary spending, things like entertainment, travel, or anything that's not essential. Now, this might sound simple, but there's real science behind it. Fidelity built this rule after analysing hundreds of financial scenarios and outcomes. They found that if a household followed this breakdown, they'd have a high probability of maintaining financial stability throughout life and into retirement. That's because 15%, when invested consistently over decades, compounds into a massive sum. But of course, life doesn't always fit perfectly into neat percentages. Expenses fluctuate. In some months, you might spend more on essentials. In others, you might have extra money to invest. The point isn't to hit 15% perfectly every month. It's to aim for that long-term average. Over a year or over several years, if you can consistently invest around 15% of your income, you'll likely reach your financial independence goals. But to increase your income, and so save more, you can open your YouTube channel with my help through the link below. But let's make this more personal with a simple case study. Imagine someone who's 38 years old, earns $80,000 a year, and already has $100,000 saved for retirement. If they plan to replace about 70% of their pre-retirement income, which is a common target recommended by financial planners, that means they'll need around $56,000 per year in retirement. Now, if we apply the well-known 4% rule, which suggests you can safely withdraw 4% of your retirement portfolio each year without running out of money, we can estimate how large their retirement fund should be. We take $56,000 and divide it by 0.04, which gives us roughly $1.4 million. That's their target nest egg. So now the question becomes, how much do they need to invest each year to reach that number? Let's assume they can earn around 8% annual returns, which is the historical average of the stock market over long periods. At a 10% savings rate, it would take them more than 26 years to reach that goal. But if they could increase their investment rate to 20%, that timeline drops to around 21 years, 5 years earlier, simply by doubling their investment rate. That's the power of percentage. It's not just about saving more money, it's about saving time. And time is the most valuable resource in finance. This is why increasing your investment rate, even slightly, can completely change your trajectory. A few percent more today can mean retiring years earlier tomorrow. But the real challenge isn't the math, it's consistency. The key to building wealth isn't hitting the jackpot, it's endurance. As author Morgan Housel once said, if you can earn average returns for an above-average period of time, you'll end up among the top investors. And that's the truth. The market doesn't reward perfection, it rewards patience. You don't need to time the market, you don't need to find the next big stock. You just need to invest consistently, month after month, no matter what's happening. Most people fail not because they don't know what to do, but because they don't do it long enough. The best investors aren't the ones who find the highest returns. They're the ones who stay invested long enough for compounding to do the work. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking that you're not investing enough right now, the fastest way to change that isn't by cutting every expense in your life. It's by finding ways to increase your income. Because the easiest money to invest is the money you never needed to spend in the first place. You might not realize it, but you probably have skills that others would pay for. Maybe you've spent thousands of hours mastering a game, a hobby, or a skill. It could be fitness, design, music, or something technical. Every skill has a market. You can teach it, write about it, or turn it into a service. And that extra income can be redirected straight into your investments, accelerating your financial growth without dramatically changing your lifestyle. So when we ask what % of your income should you invest, the most realistic answer is this: start with what's possible now and keep increasing it. For most people, aiming for 15% of income, as Fidelity suggests, is the sweet spot. It's sustainable, it's backed by decades of data, and it's enough to let compounding work its magic. But if you can push that number higher, 20%, maybe even 30%, you'll watch your timeline shrink. It's simple math with extraordinary consequences. A person who invests 10% of their income might need 30 years to retire. Someone who invests 20% might need 20 years. Someone who invests 30 could do it in 15. The gap between those numbers isn't luck or talent, it's discipline. The data tells a story. Most people will never become financially free, not because they didn't earn enough, but because they never took that first consistent step. Because they treated investing as optional instead of essential, and because they never realized how quickly compounding can work once you give it enough fuel. So if there's one takeaway from all this, it's this: don't focus on what others are investing. Focus on how much time you want to buy back. Because every extra % you invest today buys you years of freedom later. Start small if you have to. Automate it. Raise it a little each year. 10%, then 12, then 15. Because one day, you'll look back and realize that the number wasn't the most important part. It was the habit that changed everything. And that's the real answer to the question. The percentage isn't just about math, it's about behavior. The goal isn't just to reach a number, it's to reach a point where money is no longer your master, but your tool. So whether it's 10, 15, or 20%, the right percentage is the one that moves you closer to freedom and keeps you there for life. Like all the people in my free Telegram community who have opened their YouTube channel. Think about it. If you've made it this far in this video, it means what I'm explaining to you in my free Telegram community works, right? So join with the link below and let me know if you expected this in the comments, subscribe to this channel, and see you soon. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.